Are you tired of playing the same old Battlefield? Do you finally want a true successor to Battlefield 3 and 4? Are you tired of doing this same intro for years? Then good news! The latest installment of the Battlefield franchise is here. Set in the near future in 2042, the Battlefield franchise has definitely evolved from games in the past.
Was something, right?
What is this, the dude from Money Heist? Now, I've waited a bit to make this video, so I could have easily gotten my clickbait views by now if I wanted. But I wanted to wait until the game was fully released. This video isn't going to focus on the low-hanging fruit, such as bugs that are bound to be present, because, believe me, I've played enough Battlefield betas over the years to see plenty of hilarious bugs myself. We're going to dive into the fundamentals of why this game doesn't play like a Battlefield we've seen before, and why something just feels off that you can't quite put your finger on. Diving headfirst into 2042, let's start by addressing one of the primary flaws with this game. Now, this isn't some bugs in a beta or networking that can be eventually fixed. This change simply can't be patched out. This issue is the new system called Specialists. The Specialists are DICE's attempt to reinvent the wheel that wasn't broken in the first place. In fact, the original wheel was fantastic and worked fine, literally for decades. It's called Classes. Each class filled a specific role. You had Assault, Engineer, Support, and Recon. Assault was a gunplay focused class equipped with assault rifles that could heal and revive teammates. Engineer was a vehicle-focused class that could repair friendly vehicles and could destroy enemy vehicles. Support held the line and laid down heavy fire with machine guns, and would keep your team topped up with ammo. Recon was equipped with snipers and could get your squad in locations behind enemy lines, and would scout out and assist with taking down enemy infantry and vehicles. If someone on the other team was being an annoyance, there was an easy class to switch to with perfect counterplay. Is an enemy jet giving your team too much grief? Just switch to the Engineer class with some anti-air stingers and oversee the removal of his soul from the server. Can't quite break through some heavy machine gun fire? Hop on over to the land of Recon and politely introduce him to your best pal, 338. And while you're at it, maybe sneak behind them and set up a spawn beacon for you and your team, and cause some chaos. Is your team aimlessly dying to a Recon in your base? Then swap over to Assault and revive their asses and keep the flow of the fight going. Notice how each class has their own strengths and counterplay? It's a careful balance of rock, paper, scissors that's been slowly fine-tuned and has worked perfectly for years. Battlefield was always about coordinating and fighting as a team, not trying to be a one-man army like other FPS games. You can't single-handedly carry a team to victory in Battlefield. You will have those games that, despite playing your absolute best, you will get rolled by the other team if they are more coordinated, even if, individually, they might be less skilled than you. This also creates a healthy environment where even if your team does lose, you don't feel as bad as you would in other online games. There's more total players on a single team in Battlefield than there are in nearly every other game out there. There's less pressure on the individual to perform at their absolute best, and makes the perfect balance of playing on an individual level, playing with a small squad, playing as a team, and playing to win. All while still playing to have fun even when you lose. Sure, there can be blowout games where you stomp or get rolled by the enemy team, but more often than not, there's so many more games that are extremely close, which are always the most fun, no matter if you win or lose. But just exactly how do these new specialists disrupt the current system? The new specialists make the gameplay roles blurred. With the advent of the specialist system in 2042, now anyone can equip relatively whatever weapon or gadget they want. This ironically makes each individual less specialized at a specific role needed for the team. Imagine you're playing Overwatch, and each hero can swap their abilities with any other hero. Sure, it gives the individual more freedom of choice, but it also makes it hard to coordinate as a team. If I grab the enemy team, how do I know my Tracer can follow up with a Pulse Bomb, or if they have something entirely different equipped? Having a specific role makes the player aware of how their gameplay is going to be different, and makes them work effectively as a team, rather than building a custom class, or specialist, that suits their own selfish gameplay. A perfect example of the flaws of the new specialist system can be seen by looking at the old Assault class's role as a combat medic. The Assault class is equipped with health bags for healing your team, along with a defibrillator to revive downed teammates. Only charge it halfway, and the person only comes back with half health. If you weren't a fan of the new system of having to charge your defibrillators and wanted those instant revives just like in the older games, then you can change your field upgrade loadout to one that allows you to nearly instantly revive. Want to run and gun more? Then change your field upgrade loadout to one that fits that gameplay. Want to focus on repairing friendly vehicles? There's a field upgrade for that. Want to instead focus on taking out enemy vehicles and have more rockets? There's a field upgrade for that. These upgrades can greatly benefit you as an individual, but here's the catch. These upgrades have to be earned by working together as a squad. You need to follow your squad leader's orders, so you can't wander around aimlessly on the opposite side of the map far away from your squad. You have to keep them resupplied, and most importantly, keep them alive, because if your entire squad dies, you lose your upgrade bonus. The field upgrade system creates better specialists for each class, rather than an unorganized equipment and role system in 2042. And now that squad mates can revive each other in 2042, you'd think it would promote reviving more. Except now that the burden of a single class's role has been lifted and distributed among everyone in your squad, there's less incentive for a single individual to revive someone, or even play a dedicated medic role in the first place. And only 1 in 5 specialists are dedicated medics that can revive anyone on your team to full health, less than the 1 in 4 classes before. Who is going to wait 35 seconds to be potentially revived by a squad mate with half health at most, when you can spawn back into the same location in exactly 7 seconds? This blurring of roles creates issues with other gadgets as well. Despite there being 10 specialists, not one of them is specialized in the vehicle role. Take for example, the repair tool. In past games, the engineer class would usually have a repair tool, along with several anti-vehicle options of their choice. But now in 2042, both the repair tool and all the anti-vehicle weapons take up the same gadget slot. Now any specialist can select either an anti-vehicle weapon or a repair tool, but not both. More often than not, the anti-vehicle options will usually be picked over the repair tool in most cases, because taking out enemy vehicles feels far more rewarding than repairing your own teammates' vehicles. No one is going to select a repair tool over all the other gadgets available purely because it's the right thing to do for your team. You can't just expect team play to happen in multiplayer games. You have to trick the players into working together by giving them selfish rewards. And besides, we all know what the best gadget of them all truly is.
Attempting to capture Alpha 1.
Just need a second!
Right, where were we? Player roles. Having the player roles blurred affects more than just team coordination. Because both teams share the same specialists, players on opposite teams look identical. This affects being able to tell apart your own team from the enemy. Constantly in the beta, all I've seen is teammates shooting at each other, wondering if they're an enemy or not. A textbook example of how to design distinctly different classes is Team Fortress 2. Valve carefully crafted each hero and class to have a distinct silhouette, no matter the lighting or map conditions, so you can tell apart everyone at a glance. The teams were divided into two opposite colors, red and blue. Overwatch is a great modern example of this as well. Heroes don't have to worry too much about cosmetics because of their very distinct character designs. You're still aware at a glance what each hero is, despite the cosmetics they're wearing. And enemy players are given a distinct red outline, removing the confusion between friendly and enemy players. This character design concept carries over to past Battlefields as well. Each individual class has their own distinct character design, making it very easy to tell apart classes at a glance. And both teams are usually divided into separate factions, each with their own individual character models. A Chinese engineer will look different to a US engineer. This makes them easy to tell apart no matter what cosmetic changes, like camouflage, that are equipped. Unlike nearly all hero-based games, there's usually only one specific hero on each team. If I see a Genji, and I know my team doesn't have a Genji, I can be 100% certain that it's not ours, even without any visual cues. In 2042, there can be multiple identical-looking specialists on both teams at once. This is what makes gunfights so confusing at times, and it's the reason why hero-based games only work with a small number of players on each team, not an entire 128-player server. Now that everyone can be any role based on their specific loadout, you can't quickly distinguish apart player roles at a glance. So if I run out of ammo and need to resupply, all I see now are different specialists, and I don't know which of them has ammo equipped. For comparison, in Battlefield 4, I can very easily, at a glance, tell apart the distinctly different classes, and know exactly which role each one fills for the team, and quickly make my way to a support that has ammo. And if I can't find anyone around me at a quick glance, I can very quickly open up the commo rows, shout out that I need ammo, and see exactly where the supports with ammo are. These visual cues make even the most chaotic gunfights flow smoothly, and helps each class execute their role correctly. And the beauty of this system is, even if you aren't actively trying to, you're indirectly doing your class's role, and the game makes sure to reward you for this. By having the player lock in a distinct class to play, it makes them mentally aware of their larger role for the entire team. And the biggest problem of all is 2042 fails to understand one of the core concepts of having a hero or specialist-based player system. One of the main advantages of these systems is that underneath all of the visual character design, the core mechanics of each individual hero are the same. If you hear a Genji or a Tracer flanking you in Overwatch, you are immediately aware of what each hero's abilities are, what they can do, how their approach to gameplay is going to be different, and how your own hero can counterplay into them. Being able to realize all of this knowledge in a fraction of a second is what makes the overall gameplay much smoother. In 2042, two people can look exactly the same, yet be filling entirely different roles depending on their weapon and gadget setup. This directly goes against the purpose of a hero or class-based shooter. Despite the changes that the new specialists bring to 2042, let's continue our dive into other broader gameplay mechanics. The maps present in 2042 are some of the largest yet, some advertised as being 4 times the size of other maps in the series. Because of this, there wasn't much design that went into cover, or even basic lanes that are a necessity to multiplayer maps. The terrain is very flat with very low verticality. The tornado that looked cool in the trailer is a huge downgrade compared to the Levolution present in Battlefield 4 maps that would literally change the entire map. The player movement in 2042 feels clunky and slow overall. If I had to make a spectrum for player movement, I would put fast free-to-play FPS games where you can bunny hop around corners with hardly any penalty on the far end, and slow movement, heavy aiming games like Rainbow Six Siege on the opposite end. Battlefield 3 would be smack dab in the middle. It has the right balance of player movement speed to gunplay. It is slow and precise when taking corners, fast when pushing and taking ground, and smoothly transitions over obstacles and ducking and diving for cover. The aiming itself feels very precise and crisp and feels on par with a game like Counter-Strike, with the former and latter Battlefields lying just on either end from it. 2042 tries to make its movement and aiming a bit more slowed down to something more of the likes of Rainbow Six Siege. The difference is, Rainbow Six Siege is based on small number engagements at close range, holding very tight angles. If large battles are your primary goal for the game, then the movement and gunplay should be more towards the same side of the spectrum and moving faster. This is one of the reasons why Battlefield 4, with its faster movement and gunplay, was much better than Battlefield 3 was for the larger conquest maps. Back towards the other side of the spectrum, this is why Battlefield 3 was far better for Rush. The maps were primarily designed for Rush and were designed for much smaller 32 player counts at the time for consoles. Which is why on the remake of Metro for Battlefield 4, more of the map was opened up for the larger player count. And when you start comparing the map sizes of both games to 2042, you can see just how much bigger the newer maps are. Some are nearly 4 times the size of older maps. However, the player count has only doubled despite this change. Combine this with a more restrictive movement and gunplay system, and now you can finally put your finger on why 2042 just feels a bit off compared to older Battlefield games. Despite all the criticism towards DICE so far, I feel like they are indeed aware of this problem. This is the reason why there are AI bots in every multiplayer game. The map physically needs to be at a full 128 players for the game to even attempt to play out the best it can with the scale of the new maps. Notice how you can no longer pay to host your own server like before? You're only granted a quick play button, and then the game slowly filters you into a server it chooses to keep the servers populated efficiently. Why would a company that's sole purpose is to make money choose to pay the cost themselves to host the servers, rather than just letting the player base pay to host it themselves like before? There's no easy fix to add more than 128 players. The netcode is already being pushed far too hard to allow a continuous 128 connections at the same time. There's a reason why the server tick rate of Battle Royale games starts off very low and laggy at the beginning, and then slowly increases over time as people are eliminated, and less connections are required. Coming off over 11 game modes in Battlefield 4, 2042 only has 4. Conquest, Hazard Zone, Breakthrough, and Portal Mode. Breakthrough being a new spin on Rush. Unlike in Rush, in Breakthrough there are no MCOMs to arm and destroy. You have to capture 2 sectors to advance to the next section, but the defending team can also take them back after you've captured them, making it very defender-sided, even more so than Rush was. Oh, and there's far too many vehicles.
Our objective is under attack.
Who thought vehicle call-ins were a good idea? Portal Mode brings back a lot of the older game's maps, weapons, and characters. Hearing all the old gun sounds is always a nice kick of nostalgia. However, just like in the base game, there are very few weapons from the original games in Portal Mode. Think you can play Portal Mode and not have to touch the base game at all? XP earned in Portal Mode has a hard cap because people found ways to make XP lobbies on day 1. Want to host a 24/7 Metro server? Too bad. Due to the lack of server hosting, you have to make a new one every time you want to play it, and you're forced to play against bots until enough people join. There is a finite amount of Portal servers allowed at one time. Who would have thought that removing server hosting could lead to something like this? Getting a server at all, let alone one in your own region, can really feel like a roll of the dice. Portal mode was one of the biggest things I was looking forward to, and I wish I could say it's good, but it has a lot of issues, and the nostalgia factor will run out very quickly. And buying 2042 for Portal mode is like playing CSGO with a graphics mod to make it look and sound like 1.6. Yeah, sure, it looks and sounds good, but why not just play the original with all the original features in Gunplay that made it so good in the first place? To make it very clear, Portal mode is not at all a carbon copy of the older games, just a reskin of the older games models on the 2042 game engine, with all the clunky mechanics and questionable gameplay choices that comes with it. Let's dive into one of those choices. Rather than telling you what's wrong, let me demonstrate one of those decisions. The following clips are all recorded on the same map in each game, and use the same gun on full auto. Here is Battlefield 3. Here is Battlefield 4. Now here is 2042. Yeah. Naturally, 2042 is of course going to feel different. Now, don't get me wrong, I have no problem with games having high recoil. But having higher recoil in a game with much larger maps and longer range gunfights doesn't make sense. This choice moves different gameplay elements to opposite sides of the spectrum. Smaller maps should have slower movement and higher recoil, while larger maps should have faster movement and less recoil. Having higher recoil combined with a much slower bullet velocity makes gunfights from anything beyond close range just feel like taking pot shots at each other. This is why DMRs feel so trash in 2042 while being so good in Battlefield 4. An awkward situation arises from this, making the PP-29 submachine gun the best gun to use purely based on its low recoil aspect alone. Base damage, range, none of these stats matter in this game. The lower recoil weapons are better and will land more shots at the end of the day. Speaking of guns, there is very little weapon choice in 2042. What, 3 handguns, 4 assault rifles, 4 SMGs, 2 LMGs, like come on. This is the most blatant attempt at releasing guns through paid battle passes and DLC. 2042 is 100% a downgrade compared to the previous games. Just look at how many weapons you were given in Battlefield 4. 11 assault rifles, 9 SMGs, 9 LMGs, and this was just the base game. The DLC brought that up to 16 assault rifles, 13 SMGs, and 14 LMGs. All those weapons that handle and behave differently from each other. Aside from just guns, they've now made vehicles feel less rewarding to get kills with, yet still making them more powerful. The best example of this are the changes to the Little Bird helicopter. The Little Bird is one of my all-time favorite vehicles in Battlefield 4. It can be easy to pick up for players new to flying, and at the same time has a high skill ceiling for players with more experience. It is a multi-purpose vehicle that can specialize in several different roles. It can transport players much faster than the transport helicopter. It can serve as an anti-aircraft vehicle with anti-air missiles, and miniguns with extremely fast DPS. It can serve as an anti-ground vehicle with a laser-guided missile being able to lock on to fast-moving infantry vehicles. And its 30mm cannons are able to chip away at a bit of damage on light armored targets as well. And finally, it can serve as an anti-personnel option, with 30mm cannons supplying splash damage, making it very easy to clean up groups of infantry. A good pilot could indeed wreck a server, but not to the point where it guarantees a win. All of this makes it sound amazing and almost overpowered, but all of these roles were balanced out in practice, and made it quite easily counterable in numerous ways. Except maybe when it first came out and you could have 2 passengers repaired at the same time, making it nearly unkillable. Now that was overpowered. Don't worry, they nerfed that. It repairs extremely slowly as a passenger now, and has to be landed on the ground to be repaired quicker, making it vulnerable. And unlike the transport helicopter that can take multiple hits, the Little Bird has very light armor, and can usually be brought down with just 1 rocket. Not to mention, it is very susceptible to small arms fire, with its extremely exposed cockpit. Playing versus infantry means you have to get close to them, making it quite easy to be shot out of. Not to mention, if they can physically shoot at you, you are well within lock-on range of anti-aircraft missiles. Get too close trying to secure that one extra infantry kill, and you will be met with the death screen quite a lot. It can be easy to get a couple of kills with, but takes time to master and patience to stay alive. Now let's look at the Little Bird in 2042. In 2042, on the surface, not much has changed. It's light armored, fast, and can transport a few extra passengers. Only two things have been tweaked. Its anti-air missiles have been removed and replaced with anti-infantry rockets, and its minigun has had its bullet velocity severely nerfed and its damage output as well. These two small changes have completely affected its larger role and overall balance. Lowering the minigun's velocity has now made it much more difficult to lead and track targets, especially smaller ones that can move and change direction quickly, making it a severely poor choice to use versus infantry. Meanwhile, the 30mm cannons, with their splash damage, are clearly the better choice to use. You don't have to stand still as long trying to line up a shot and risk being shot out yourself. And now with the new anti-personnel rockets, it becomes even more effective versus infantry, and borderline overpowered in that role. Why try to run an anti-vehicle role with a laser-guided missile and barely be able to chip away at even light armored vehicles, when you can run 30mm cannons with rockets and just farm infantry kills? And now with the anti-air missile removed entirely, combined with its very weak miniguns, why even attempt to fight other aircraft in the first place? You're better off just avoiding other aircraft, dipping out to hide for a second, and then return to focusing on farming infantry kills. In case it wasn't clear, no one likes dying to vehicles as infantry in Battlefield. It's just not fun. And the new rocket pods don't make it easier for new players, or more in-depth for seasoned players. It just makes it awkward for everyone. In Battlefield 4, newer players would often opt for the 30mm cannons due to its splash damage, making it easier to aim. However, the splash damage was small on the cannons and would have a limited amount of ammo and would need to be reloaded, limiting the amount of kills one could get in a single pass. If you were more precise with your flying, you'd often opt to use the miniguns instead, being able to quickly burst down enemies much faster and not have to reload. Not to mention that they serve as a very good aircraft counter as well, as mentioned before, being able to out-DPS even a stealth jet. This frees up your anti-air missile slot for a laser-guided missile, able to inflict heavy damage to vehicles, unlike the 30mm cannons that slowly chip at them. Whether you use miniguns and laser-guided missiles, or cannons and anti-air missiles, they both serve the same role. No matter the player's skill level, both setups can play against infantry, light armor, and other aircraft. This is what creates balance and makes it easy to play, but hard to master. But now with the minigun nerf in 2042, rocket pods feel like a clunky and cheesy mechanic to make up for it. In all my time using the rocket pods, it wasn't satisfying to get kills with. It just felt cheap and unrewarding, and feels cheap to be killed by it. Rocket pods are not a good way to balance the minigun nerf, it just makes it awkward for both sides. Rather than keeping its original balance as a multi-role vehicle, these changes make it extremely bad versus aircraft and extremely good versus infantry. And now anti-aircraft missiles themselves feel very inconsistent. It can take anywhere from 1 to 3 shots to take down even lightly armored aircraft. Sometimes they don't lock on if you're too close to an aircraft. Sometimes they just refuse to hit an aircraft if the aircraft is near a building. It's quite easy to be spawn camped by enemy aircraft as well. This issue was solved over 10 years ago by having an anti-air gun that could be piloted in each team's base. And Battlefield 4 simplified that further by just making it unmanned and automatic if someone tried to fly too far into your base. Now, just to quickly touch on some of the performance issues present in 2042. Normally, I wouldn't mind bugs and performance issues from a beta, but now that it's fully released with the day 1 patch, some of these issues are too big to ignore. So I decided to do some benchmarking of my own. So, starting off, we have a 2080 Ti. Here are the average FPS results for low, ultra, and ultra with RTX enabled. Nothing looks too crazy here at first. Now, here's where things get interesting. Halfway through this video, I decided to get a 3080 Ti, purely to see just how bad the performance really is. So, just how much faster was a 3080 Ti? 3%. The 3080 Ti was only 3% faster on average than a 2080 Ti. Keep in mind, the 3080 Ti is normally around 30% faster. When analyzing GPU usage, we can see why. The 2080 Ti only maxes out at around 81%, while the 3080 Ti maxes out at around 63% usage, which comes out to a difference of around, oh hey, look at that, 30%. The game is so poorly optimized that it can't fully utilize your GPU, which makes the game run slower than it should. This is no fault of Nvidia or their driver, because I tested both an older driver from October and the day one driver with virtually no performance gain between them. The game is just that poorly optimized, where nearly 40% of my GPU isn't being used at all. Poorly enough that when enabling RTX, GPU usage at times can be lower than with it disabled. If you're enabling more graphics settings, it should add more load to the card and increase its usage, not decrease it. There is no reason why using a setup like this, I should be struggling to get 60 FPS at max settings, or even 120 FPS on the lowest settings. Aside from just graphical performance, the game looks bad in many other ways. The user interface has a plethora of bugs, problems, and just poor design choices. Now, most gamers hate change, but coming from Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4 simply didn't change elements just for the sake of it. It refined the existing ones to improve upon them. This can be seen both in-game and the loadout menu. The loadout menu is much more streamlined, with simple drop-down menus for selection. No longer do you need to scroll to select what attachment you want. Team and squad selection couldn't be much simpler. A lot of quality of life adjustments were made to make the game flow smoother, such as adding a visual res timer to downed players and identifying who has health and ammo when you're low. 2042 has a lot of poor UI choices that makes it a direct downgrade in nearly every aspect. Starting from the spawn screen, vehicle deployment is very unintuitive. When trying to spawn into a vehicle already on the map, it's impossible to tell them apart. What heli am I looking at here? A little bird? An attack heli? They all share the same icon. More often than not, the gunner seat on the attack helicopter is always vacant for this reason. This is a stark change from Battlefield 4, where the gunner slot was always instantly filled. Not only that, but you can physically see what you're spawning into. A small preview window lets you view exactly what the selected vehicle or squad mate sees before spawning into it. In 2042, this feature was removed, making a squad or vehicle selection very questionable at times. Not only that, but the map lacks a basic zoom function, making it incredibly difficult to accurately select where you want to spawn. It doesn't stop at the spawn screen as well. Even if you get lucky and spawn on the correct vehicle you'd like, it can be very disorienting as a gunner. Because a helicopter can quickly turn in place, and the free-looking gunner can quickly turn as well, this can often lead to some disorienting situations. This is because you are not aware of which way the helicopter is rotating relative to your own direction. This was easily solved with an icon to show the relative vehicle direction. It shows which way the vehicle is facing, which way the driver is aiming, and which way the gunner is aiming, making it extremely easy to not only get your bearings at a glance, but also that of your passenger, making coordination extremely easy. Similarly, in helicopters, there was a box that showed where your gunner was aiming relative to the front of the aircraft. And as a gunner, it would show you the outer bounds of your aiming, making it easy to correct your aim and figure out which way the aircraft is moving. Are you shooting at someone, then all of a sudden, your box moves quickly to the right and you can no longer aim right? That's because the helicopter has quickly turned to the left, and you are now limited to how far you can turn. You can simply aim left to correct, and are now aiming the same direction that the helicopter is facing. And even if you were overwhelmed and couldn't rely on the box, as a gunner you can switch views and are immediately greeted with a first-person view of the cockpit, nearly identical to what the driver sees. You are able to look around freely and assess and spot targets around you from this view. Not only is this viewpoint absent, but you can no longer free look around simply by holding right-click. This made it easier as a pilot to get your bearings and better understanding of the situation around you. Now you can see how just a small UI change can drastically affect gameplay. The UI present is also a bit clunky and not needed as well. Why is the weapon icon for the attack heli gunner so massive? I know what gun it is, I'm literally in the gunner seat, and it only has one option for the primary gun. As mentioned previously, being able to see what's around you when flying is extremely important, so screen space real estate needs to be managed properly when designing a UI. A lot of the in-game UI is designed to look good, not be functional. A good UI should be easy to navigate quickly at a glance, and should be functional first rather than attractive. The UI isn't what should look fancy to make the game look attractive. The gameplay itself should do that. In Battlefield 4, every piece of screen space used has its purpose, and is designed to be functional, not pretty. The realistic looking green HUD when flying isn't for show. All these numbers actually mean something and are used when flying. Now compared to 2042, the UI takes up far more screen space and displays a lot of unnecessary info. The new HUD, combined with a much more obstructive cockpit view, makes 2042's HUD over 42% bigger. The crosshair lacks the functionality of showing you where your rockets will impact, and yet at the same time takes up more space for the sake of looking different. I don't need to see what console my squad mates are on. And now with the specialists, they have to display a much larger picture that you have to squint at to guess what class they're playing, rather than a simple one-color icon. The bottom right weapon and health layout takes up nearly twice the space and ironically has less info and functionality than before. A great example of this is the countermeasures. Sure, a bar slider might appear nicer to show when my flares are reloaded, but this design requires the icon to be much larger to effectively see. If I'm trying to dodge a missile lock, I shouldn't have to keep glancing down multiple times to try to guess how much time is left on my flares, when a simple timer in the middle of the screen will do, because human brains are incredibly good at counting seconds in their heads. That way I can keep my eyes centered and focus on flying to get away. Why do I need to know what the name of the aircraft is? I can already physically see what I'm flying. Now that would have been useful in the spawn screen. And again, it needlessly shows the name of the weapon selected. I don't need to know the full punctually correct name of the weapon when one word will do. That really doesn't even need to be there in the first place because the icons for each weapon are distinctly different. A lot of small rockets, anti-personnel. A few big rockets, anti-vehicle. Magic Wi-Fi rockets, lock-on. Good UI, bad UI. Form follows function. More elements in the in-game UI are poorly designed as well. From obnoxious alerts that take up way too much of your screen, to some elements not working at all. Sometimes there's no indication if a vehicle is friendly, enemy, or empty. Even if it is an enemy aircraft, most of the time after firing your first shot, it won't show the locking on visual and sound, only popping up at the last moment when it's fully locked on already. This worked flawlessly 10 years ago, and would even show the missile attempting to physically lock onto the deployed flares, showing how countermeasures confuse it. Come on, DICE. Battlefield 3 came out a decade ago. You can do this. Remember how confusing it was to see friend from foe in gunfights because of the new specialists? DICE's attempt at a lazy fix is to make all enemies display a marker if they're within a certain range, which completely removes stealth plays if people can automatically see you if you're close enough. No longer can you make the classic play of going prone in front of a tank and hope if you don't move, it won't see you like it's a T-Rex. Black Ops 4 did something similar. With oversaturated and incohesive color palettes, and both teams having the same selection of specialists, they simply added 2 bright red lights on the shoulders of enemies to tell them apart. Like, what kind of lazy-ass solution is that? Can you believe— oh wait. For a game that's directly marketed as a follow-up and proper sequel to Battlefield 4, it is well within people's rights to be disappointed in what was brought to the table with 2042 after waiting 8 years. After a week of playing 2042, I felt like I've seen and done everything there is to do. Just like with Battlefield 4's scuffed launch, some of the blame can be shared with EA, trying to rush out games and running studios into the ground until they die. Battlefield 4 was an extremely buggy game on launch. A lot of the problems with 2042 aren't bugs, but are core gameplay choices at the very bedrock of the game's design that makes for a messy experience. These choices can't simply be patched out, and the drastic changes required won't happen, with DICE doubling down after the initial backlash to the new game changes that were discovered before launch. The fresh, single-layer paint of a new game is going to wear off very fast, and already has for most. It's not that 2042 is a bad game, it's just not good. And not good doesn't cut it for $60 with the number of good, free-to-play games that are out there. Especially that Battlefield 4 Premium Edition, a game that is fully patched, plays better, looks better, and has all the DLC weapons and maps, can be had for only $40. And if you're lucky, it goes on sale for $10, which has happened 7 times in the last year alone. You can literally buy a copy for you and 10 of your friends for less than the cost of 2042. Hey lads, thanks for being patient with this one. This has been my thoughts on 2042. Let me know if you agree or disagree, and if you genuinely like this video style and want to see more reviews like this, then give it a thumbs up and comment what you'd like to see me review. Despite how long it took to make, it was fun doing it. I originally started writing this video back in the invite-only beta, and it just slowly grew from there. I originally planned to have it up on Christmas Day, but I realized that by rushing the video, I would have been no better than EA at that point. As you can tell, over the last few years, I haven't really cared for gaming content much and slowly moved away from it. If you do want to see more gaming content, I am going to try to stream on Twitch more consistently after this video goes up. And once again, if you do want to see more videos like this, just leave a comment and let me know. I have been filming more IRL content involving cars, in case you're wondering why there were cars in the last 2 videos. And if you don't know already, I do have a second channel dedicated to just cars. I am going to be posting more on there this year to come, and I already have many videos planned for it, and several are in the works already right now. If you have any interest in cars, traveling, or are a fan of watching Top Gear, then you'll definitely like the channel. And hey, if you really like this review video format, I could continue this as a series potentially. I have more content to come, so I'll see you all in the near future.